Flying a T-38 out of Randolph Air Force Base down to Lopping Field. And it's one of those beautiful Texas days. Clear visibility and no clouds. And as we took off, I could see the city of San Antonio to the right. And I tried to pick out the Alamo. But you know, it's so small and it's kind of an unassuming building, all dwarfed with big buildings. So I couldn't pick it out. But it's not the Alamo that fires up the imagination of American people. But it's what happened there. And many of you know the story about Colonel Travis took his sword and he drew a line in the sand in San Antonio. And he said, those that are willing to stay and fight for freedom step across the line. And 189 people crossed the line. Now, I don't know why those people came to San Antonio, Texas. I think maybe some were there running away from their past or looking for adventures, or maybe even monetary gains. But whatever the reason, when they stepped across that line, they became American heroes. Now, our president, President Bush, some time ago drew an imaginary line in the Middle East. And he said to the world, no more will America stand by and not protect their national interests. And when he drew this imaginary line, he asked that members of the U.S. Air Force, the Air National Guard, and Air Force Reserve step up to that line. And I'm proud to report to you today that we had more volunteers to go to the Gulf War than we had requirements for. And that's just another reason I'm proud to be an American. And another reason I'm proud of these young folks here. I'm also proud to stand in this uniform today. But after 40 years of a difficult Cold War, the seemingly impossible happened overnight. The Berlin Wall came down. The superpower struggle relaxed, and the paradigm that had underwritten U.S. national security since the end of World War II changed. Some declared victory, and when we started beating our aircraft in the plowshares. Then came the Iraq aggression and put this strategy to the test. As we assess lessons from Desert Storm, we need to avoid overconfidence and complacency. We cannot afford the assumption that the next war will be like this war. There is much to take away from this conflict, and I think we would be foolish not to sit down and take a look at our notes. But we need to be alert that other places and other circumstances may present different problems. With this foregoing statement, I don't mean to take anything away from the tremendous victory America won in the Gulf. Nothing can diminish the superb performance of the men and women of the Allied forces. But I do want to be sure that we take the right lessons away from the war. And that's another thing we need to keep in mind. We will not be the only ones who will learn from the Gulf. Potential adversaries will learn some lessons too. So how do we, in the U.S. Air Force, use the lessons learned from the Gulf to ensure America's security for tomorrow? Well, our interest and our focus must remain global. We are a maritime nation and an aerospace nation with a network of economic, political, and military interests around the world. Far too many of our materials and manufactured products come from other parts of the world, and far too many of our markets are outside of the United States for us to disregard affairs on the world stage. And we must participate, and participate with the instrument of a national power, and that includes our military. That means we need to maintain credible capability to project military power anywhere in the world where American interests are threatened. And ladies and gentlemen, that is no simple task. So it's obvious that the emphasis has shifted. As would be expected, this shift has caused us to make prudent decrease in the defense budget. By 1995, defense spending will reach a 50-year low in terms So just as today's armed forces grew, deterred, and fought this morning desert storm, we must reconstruct together. We are reshaping the armed forces based on the requirements of a new national military strategy and within the constraints of our budget. The lessons are also clear. We must reshape the total force in keeping with the world in which we live. What remains must be trained and ready. And this is a lesson of history that was stated by General Abrams just prior to his death, and I quote, "I don't think anyone really believes in war. I think most people feel it's a sorry way to try to solve differences between nations and people. But in my experience, I can't help but be appalled at the human cost we pay. Dollars, you can print them. But the human cost we pay because we didn't have a ready and a trained and a developed military force. We've had to put it together under the strain of an emergency. And we've had to have relatively untrained men led by relatively untrained men do a difficult task." And that was written by General Abrams after he had fought in 3 wars for his country. But in my opinion, of all the sins that our government may commit, however innocently or inadvertently, an untrained serviceman sent into combat is the hardest to explain or defend, because training is where the seeds of our future are planted. And this group of young people here today, in class 9-15, have received the best flying training in the world. However, with a budget, the drawdown, the cut in equipment, and set, it's still the man or the woman in the foxhole, or working on the aircraft, or painting the ship that shoulders the load. And you, as young officers and young pilots, should let these people know that they occupy the highest position of trust in our society. You should also let them know that the good life that we have here in Columbus, Mississippi, cannot be sustained without an effort on their part. So what do you, officers, expect for your service? Well, I say nothing. Because your motivation comes not from tangible things such as applause or cheers or visible signs of support, or even monetary reward. Instead, the professional officer and pilot must be motivated by a higher calling, and that's a calling of dedicated service to country. And I think the most famous description of this inner motivation was provided by General Douglas MacArthur in his well-known West Point speech. And some of you in this audience might even know this speech by heart. But please allow me to repeat it, just a portion of it. He states, "Yours is a profession of arms, the will to win, the sure knowledge that in war there is no substitute for victory, that if you lose, the nation will be destroyed. That very obsession of your public service must be duty, honor, and country. Duty, honor, and country are 3 very powerful words. But those words summarize the fundamental values of my job and your job. I feel like that this is as much alive today, and it's all a volunteer force, as I have seen it during my career. And I thank you for joining the military, and I thank you for your dedication to our country. And I salute you. you go to a place and they'll give you a plaque to hang on your wall. I'm sure that, what happens is a wall full of plaques. We try to do something here at Columbus that's perhaps a little different. We try to give a gift that has some utility to it. Now, I was pleased to do this to General Porter, a couple of other general officers, very famous general officers. And so the gift that the class chose to give General Warren is General Schwarzkopf's new book. And so it's inscribed with the autographs of all the members of class 9215. We have the following message to the graduates of class 9215 of the U.S. Air Force and Major Commanders. Congratulations to the members of class 9215. During the pilot length is a memorable event in your life, and you can be proud of your achievement. We in Air Training Command, Air Mobility Command, and Air Combat Command wish you every success in the years ahead. You are coming to our command as well. We promise you challenging and rewarding work as you join us in our profession of maintaining readiness. Signed, Lieutenant General Joseph W. Ashton, Commander, Air Training Command. General Ronald R. Coleman, Commander-in-Chief, Air Mobility Command, and General John M. Lowe, Commander, Air Combat Command. In each class, there are officers whose overall performance in military training, academics, and flying warrant special recognition. We will formally recognize those officers whose achievements place them at the top of their class. They are designated as the distinguished graduates of class 9215. I will read the letter from the Commander of Air Training Command to these individuals. Congratulations on your selection as a distinguished graduate from the United States Air Force Pilot Training Program. I take great pride in your demonstrated ability and motivation to excel in the task at hand. Throughout your promising career, you will face many challenges that demand the same dedication and motivation which you have exhibited during this year of pilot training. I challenge you to expand your capabilities and leadership skills and to sustain your exceptional performance. Your future and that of the Air Force depends upon your best effort. I wish the very best in your first operational assignment in your Air Force career. Signed, Joseph W. Ashton, Lieutenant General, United States Air Force, Commander, Air Training Command. Colonel Ardillo, Lieutenant Distinguished Graduate Class. Class 9215 has 3 distinguished graduates. As I call your name, please come forward. Second Lieutenant Andrew W. Dalton. Second Lieutenant Stephen M. Edmond. Second Lieutenant Richard T. Stoker. The academic faculty presents an Outstanding Achievement Award to a member of the graduating class who has achieved the highest academic average. The significance of this accomplishment can be fully appreciated only when we realize that academic courses consist of 380 hours of instruction and 11 formal examinations with a total of 367 questions. Lieutenant Colonel Seward will present the Academic Excellence Award to Second Lieutenant Richard E. Aaron. To get here today, each student
successfully completed 7 aircraft check rides covering all phases of training in both the T-37 and the T-38 aircraft. The Flying Training Award is given to the individual who obtained the highest flying grade average among the members of his class. This individual truly excels in all aspects of flying. Lieutenant Colonel Peterson will present the Flying Training Award for Class 9215 to Second Lieutenant Richard T. Silver. The Military Training Award is presented to the member of the class who demonstrates the most outstanding officer qualities. The military bearing, manner, and appearance of this individual far exceeds the standards that all officers are expected to meet. He consistently served as an example to the other members of his class. This individual's superior leadership qualities, sound judgment, and unique ability to promote class unity served as an inspiration to his classmates. Lieutenant Colonel Parker will present the Military Training Award for Class 9215. Second Lieutenant Andrew W. Dalton. The Order of the Dalian is a national fraternity of active and retired military pilots dedicated to ideals of patriotism and personal integrity. The Possumtown Flag Order of the Dalian is selected for membership into their organization. One of our student pilots excelled in the flying training program. This selection indicates our strongest confidence in his potential for success as an Air Force officer and pilot. Colonel Ford will present the Dalian membership to Second Lieutenant Bernie W. Penn. The most prestigious award, the ATC Commander's Trophy, is presented to the most outstanding graduate of the class. The recipient of this award distinguished himself in all areas of training. His officership and expertise in both flying and academics clearly put him at the top of his class. Major General Womack will present the ATC Commander's Trophy to Second Lieutenant Andrew W. Dalton. Then Auburn and Tiff just have to bang it back at the tow truck after graduation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present the 14th Operations Group Commander, Colonel Forrest, who presents the class for graduation.
Mothers and fathers, wives and girlfriends, relatives and friends of Class 9215, I would like to add my personal welcome to Columbus Air Force Base. We hope you've enjoyed this red carpet day. We do apologize for the weather. It's been our relative. We try to do better, but this is typical Columbus weather. As your sons, I'm sure, have told you, they worked extremely hard during the last 52 weeks to get where they are today in this auditorium. pilots should carry hankies and a handy plate to wipe off goggles. So we don't wear goggles anymore, but sometimes the instructors cry after a flight, so we ask them to please carry something for them to take care of. Riding on the steps, wings, and tails of the machine is prohibited. We still won't let them do that. We would like to. Two cadets should never ride together in the same machine, and I can assure you, we never let two of these people fly. And the last one, probably my favorite, is one, and I can really, a lot of them can relate to this, is that pilots should not wear spurs while flying. I think a few of these wanted to get the T-37, they could go a little bit faster than they were actually when they got the T-37. All in all, these pilots are extremely well trained. I can assure you they are the best trained pilots in the United States Air Force. General Womack, Colonel Ardello, I certify that each member of Class 9215 has met each exacting standard to become a pilot in the United States Air Force.
Ladies and gentlemen, now the moment we've been anxiously awaiting. The awarding of the silver wings of the Medal of Honor. The diplomas and wings will be presented to the graduates of Class 9215 by General Womack. The following officers: 50th Flying Training Squadron, Air Training Command, Columbus Air Force Base, Mississippi. Graduates of Class 9215 are awarded the Aeronautical Rating of Pilot, effective 2 October 1992, and are required to participate frequently in such rating as per Section 102, Executive Order 11157. As I call your name, will each graduate please come forward? First Lieutenant Carter M. Love from St. Matthews, South Carolina. Lieutenant Love will fly the C-141, United States Air Force Reserve, Charleston Air Force Base, South Carolina. First Lieutenant Javier A. DeLuca from San Juan, Puerto Rico. Lieutenant DeLuca chose to fly tanker aircraft and served as a supply officer at Plattsburgh Air Force Base, New York. Lieutenant DeLuca will wear the wings of the Bronco. Lieutenant Colonel Ronaldo DeLuca, United States Air Force retired. Second Lieutenant Andrew W. Dahlgren from Rockaway, New York. Lieutenant Dahlgren will fly the C-141, Ford Air Force Base, Washington. Second Lieutenant Richard E. Aaron from Wheeling, West Virginia. Lieutenant Aaron will fly the C-130, Dyess Air Force Base, Texas. Second Lieutenant Clyde E. Barker from Grayson, Kentucky. Lieutenant Barker chose to fly tanker aircraft and will serve as a transportation officer at Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota. Second Lieutenant Johnny L. Barnes II from Kingsport, Tennessee. Lieutenant Barnes chose to fly tanker aircraft and will serve as a supply officer at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant Mark E. Blunt from Hickory, Mississippi. Lieutenant Blunt will fly the C-141, Travis Air Force Base, California. Second Lieutenant James E. Foster from Fairfield, Illinois. Lieutenant Foster chose to fly fighter aircraft and will serve as a maintenance officer at Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. Second Lieutenant Jamie S. Burgess from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Lieutenant Burgess will fly the KC-135, Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota. Second Lieutenant Gary A. Bynum from Decatur, Alabama. Lieutenant Bynum chose to fly tanker aircraft and will serve as a mechanical engineer at Robbins Air Force Base, Florida. Second Lieutenant Joseph C. Gay from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Lieutenant Gay will fly RC-135, Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska. Second Lieutenant Keith Green from Baltimore, Maryland. Lieutenant Green goes to fly transport aircraft and will serve as a security police officer at Dover Air Force Base, Delaware. Second Lieutenant Peter T. Hahn from Bel Air Beach, Florida. Lieutenant Hahn will fly the C-5, Travis Air Force Base, California. Second Lieutenant Brian D. Howard from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Lieutenant Howard will fly the F-16, North Dakota Air National Guard, North Dakota. Second Lieutenant Stephen M. Head from Pella, Michigan. Lieutenant Head will fly the C-141, Travis Air Force Base, California. Second Lieutenant Stephen F. Jameson from Fort Knob, Indiana. Lieutenant Jameson will fly the KC-135, Fairchild Air Force Base, Washington. Second Lieutenant Mark E. Lindo from Germantown, Tennessee. Lieutenant Lindo chose to fly transport aircraft and will serve as a flight test engineer at Edwards Air Force Base, California. Second Lieutenant Christopher D. Lupo from Asheville, North Carolina. Lieutenant Lupo will fly the KC-135, Robinson Air Force Base, Georgia. Second Lieutenant Francesco Mini from Siena, Italy. Lieutenant Mini will fly the Tornado, Italian Air Force. Lieutenant Mini will receive both Italian Air Force wings and United States Air Force. Second Lieutenant Bernie W. Pendley from Jasper, Georgia. Lieutenant Pendley will fly the C-141, Ford Air Force Base. Second Lieutenant Ronald R. Ray from Tonawanda, New York. Lieutenant Ray will fly fighter aircraft and will serve as a maintenance officer, Holland Air Force Base, New Mexico. Second Lieutenant John P. Rao from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Lieutenant Rao will fly tanker aircraft and will serve as a scientific analyst at Edwards Air Force Base, California. Second Lieutenant Randall J. Sauer from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Lieutenant Sauer chose to fly tanker aircraft and will serve as an aeronautical engineer at Robinson Air Force Base. Second Lieutenant Tobias R. Turnell from Memphis, Tennessee. Lieutenant Turnell chose to fly fighter aircraft and will serve as a project engineer at Hill Air Force Base, Utah. Second Lieutenant Brian L. Sizemore from Charleston, West Virginia. Lieutenant Sizemore will fly the C-130H, West Virginia Air National Guard, West Virginia. Second Lieutenant Richard E. Stoll from Galesburg, Illinois. Lieutenant Stoll will fly the KC-10, Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, and wear the wings of Colonel Kenneth Hammond, United States Air Force. Second Lieutenant Richard E. Zavoda from Solon, Ohio. Lieutenant Zavoda chose to fly transport aircraft and serve as assistance analyst at Falcon Air Force Station, Colorado. Second Lieutenant Jeffrey R. Ward from Amherst, Virginia. Lieutenant Ward chose to fly tanker aircraft and will serve as a scientific analyst at Peterson Air Force Base, Colorado. Second Lieutenant Jonathan A. Watson from Sperryville, Virginia. Lieutenant Watson chose to fly fighter aircraft and will serve as a transportation officer at Tindall Air Force Base, Florida. Second Lieutenant Mehmet Yalanov from Adana, Turkey. Lieutenant Yalanov will fly the F-16, Turkish Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the world's 32 newest and best persons.
You don't have to focus. Just point it at us.
Just point it, no focus.
All right. Ready, Shani? Wish you were here. You understand? You understand the deal?
Hi, Shani.
I took this now. Can you find us yet? We're like... I got one hat. What's that? Well, then you got to cough it up. Tell someone where you put it. Oh my God, how long?